Welcome to the third episode of our Orbital Blues series, everyone. We have game designer Sam Sleney with us today to finish creating characters with us, as well as help us create our cruise ship. But before we get to that, here's what to expect in our calls to action. You can join me here after the show to hear all about the new shows on the network, starting with James D'Amato's The Ultimate RPG Podcast, and the one I'm editing, Starwhal. We'll also go over the latest Kickstarter from the One Shot Network and how it needs your help. Our last special call to action will be about a new game from previous guest, Tracy Barnett, that you will definitely want to check out. And we'll have our normal show closer stuff alongside all of that. With that all out of the way, enjoy the show, everyone. Last time on Character Creation Cast, Sam was creating Reyes, aka the actor. Amelia was creating Chris, aka the twist. And I was creating Kit, aka the lonely heart. We're picking up right where we left off last time. Enjoy.
So I'll keep going through character creation as it appears in the book. Just because that's how we chose to present it. I think that's the easiest.
Makes sense. That's how you wrote the game, part, so that's how we're going to do it.
The next part is a little header called Heart and Blues. Now you've got a concept and crew, you need to know how you're going to live. In Orbital Blues, your character has two measures of how well they are getting by: heart and blues. Heart is your ability to get hit and keep going. It is your physical health and well-being and the stat that keeps you off the floor. Characters begin with heart equal to 8 plus their muscle. Characters lose heart when they are shot or hit. Should a character's heart ever drop to 0, they are on the brink of death. Better plan a suitably dramatic exit before they bite the bullet. Blues are a loose measure of a character's past sins, personal grievances, and guilty hang-ups, and an indicator of growth and experience. You gain blues from troubles. So, heart, it's your health. And it is 8 plus whatever your muscle is. So for me, as the strong guy, mine is 10. Because my muscle is +2.
Mine is 8.
I've got,
Yep.
Yep, and I've got 9 right in the middle there.
Nice.
Right.
Troubles and Gambits is the next section. Blues will come back up again further into the character creation section. Gambits are talents, tricks, and reliable assets that characters call upon to get jobs done. They reflect a character's past ties or abilities. Characters gain gambits through play or pay for them with troubles. New characters start with 1 gambit. For every 2 troubles a character has, they take a new gambit. Troubles are summations of a character's past misgivings, misdeeds, vices, or regrets. They fuel your individual and group narratives, and sometimes provide a source of blues. Characters begin play with 1 trouble and can gain new troubles at the end of a troubles brewing scene or by knocking on heaven's door, which are 2 mechanics that can come up in play. They may also gain troubles at the storyteller's discretion in play from events, actions, and behaviors. You can find a full list of gambits and troubles on page 34. Now, we can go to that now, depending on how you want to flesh out your character, or if we carry on going page by page, we're next going to roll for our weapons or equipments and a memento. Which direction would you two like to go in?
I think I'd like to look at the gambits and troubles and just kind of see where that takes my vibe.
That's a fun way of doing things. So gambits begin on page 33. And we skip ahead, and this is not something that you can roll on. I mean, if you did a count up of all the abilities and added numbers to them, yeah, you can roll on anything. But this is where we make a choice. So we take a Gambit and we take a Trouble to start with.
Okay.
So a Gambit is a talent, essentially, and a Trouble is kind of like a negative talent, I suppose. It's something that affects your character negatively. I am going to have a quick flick through for I think I may have just seen a Trouble that would be good for me. So this gives me a little more depth, and I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to go with the Trouble of Papa was a rolling stone. Perhaps Dad was the highest roller this side of renewed Vegas, or Ma was the best bounty hunter who ever held a 45. Whatever it was, you will always and forever live in their shadow. Answer 2 of the following questions during character creation. And this is how every Trouble works. It asks you to answer 2 out of 5 questions. And whenever you answer one of the questions during play, you gain 1 blues. So, for the 5 questions that I can choose from are, number 1, whose shadow do you live under? 2, what were they famous for, with in brackets there, so it could be what are they infamous for? 3, how do you hope to outdo them? 4, how does their reputation haunt you? And 5, how did you get out from under them? So I'm going to say, whose shadow do you live under? And I'm going to go with my mother, who I'm going to say was a big, glamorous silver screen star. And I have tried to follow in her footsteps, but I have the looks, but I just don't have the acting talent. And I will forever just be known as a fail son, it seems. That is,
wow, you're not even good enough to be a Nepo baby.
Yeah, no, not you. Like, and maybe had a couple of that. Maybe that's how I got those roles in the daytime soap operas that you mentioned, by being a Nepo baby. But the director was just like, this guy is terrible. Get him off the screen. So I'm going to say my answer to that, my first one of those, whose shadow do you live under? My mother's. And how does their reputation haunt you is question number 4. How does their reputation haunt you? I will never live up to all of the space Oscars that she has won in the past. And as so, in taking Papa was a rolling stone as my Trouble, I will gain 1 blues when my forebear's reputation undermines my achievements, which are few and far between. Your abilities are doubted against your predecessors. That's probably going to happen a lot. And your abilities or achievements are compared to theirs. That's also probably going to happen a lot when people know who I am, but I'm probably not going to talk about it. What about you two?
There's a lot of good things to choose from.
Yeah, I know. These are really... You can use that as transition music, Ryan. It was a song I wrote for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I want something. Where's the one? I kind of want Too Big for Your Boots. You're the best at something and you know it. God help anyone who tells you otherwise.
And what are you good at?
And let's see. I am good at lying. Like, really good at lying.
You're the best liar.
Yes. Most convincing.
Okay, so too big for your boots.
Do you dominate? Yeah.
So that's answered question number 1. What field do you dominate? Lying.
Yeah, lying. Yeah.
And what? Read out the other questions for us there. Do you have any answers for them?
Yeah. The other options, what are your vast accomplishments? What rivals languish in your shadows? In what dark moments do you doubt your supremacy? What others helped you reach your lofty peak? So I think I'm going to answer that 4th question there. In what dark moments do you doubt your supremacy? I think when all of the lies start to converge, you're in a spot where like you are maintaining lots of different things. It very much feels like a house of cards.
When you're spinning all those lies.
Trying to remember who I told what to and how much people know and, you know. Which lies cancel out other lies?
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So with too big for your boots, you would gain a blues whenever you answer one of the following questions during play, or when you put others down, you list your accomplishments, or you fail to prove your superiority. So they're the snags for your troubles that will gain you blues.
Mm-hmm.
What about the techie?
Yeah, Kit. There's a lot of good gambits, I think, that fit well for Kit.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the gambits.
Yeah, I'm thinking
I'll go back to those.
might come back to that in a second. But I believe I'm gonna go with Lovesick, which fits with the Lonely Heart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had a lover, but now they're gone. It doesn't feel all that good, right? And I get to answer 2 of these questions during character creation. And I'm wondering, okay, so who said I love you first is one of the questions. And I want to say Kit was the first one to say it in this past relationship.
Which is why you're so, like, hesitant now.
Yeah, absolutely. I keep people at an arm's distance because I don't think it went all that well.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, let's see, when did you realize it was over? Might be an interesting question to answer.
Hey, Ryan.
Yeah.
Can I be the person you said it to?
Ooh.
Drama.
That would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do that.
Okay.
When did I realize it was all over? When you never said it back?
Did you catch a lie somewhere?
Like,
I feel like. Mm-hmm.
Did you just say I know?
You're right. Or did I say it back and it wasn't really true?
Is it a matter of like because your character's a renowned like
liar.
I guess
liar, right? Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, I'm the best at it, but ideally if you're the best at it, nobody knows that you're doing it.
Right. But I wonder if I've always felt that it was like.
I feel like maybe you've been around me long enough to notice like those inconsistencies in what I tell people.
Yeah, I think so. I think I didn't realize that all of those past I love yous from you were a lie until we were well into seeing you with actual lies in action.
Yeah.
That would be really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So those are 2 questions I think set up a lot of delicious drama.
That's very good.
Only if that's okay with you. But
that's 100% okay.
I want to answer your questions for you, but
what a twist.
That's me.
I am going to move to gambits, which are our talents that we get. Mine has come to me pretty easily, and I am going to go with beauty. You are attractive by any measure. It has its benefits, including but not limited to rolling with the upper hand on checks against the smitten or against the odds against the envious. And this has a little sidebar next to it that I felt was quite pertinent to put in the game. So the gambit I've taken is beauty, and above that there is another one called beast, which is its reverse. You are very intimidating. It has its benefits, including but not limited to rolling with the upper hand against the cowardly or against the odds against those with something to prove. And sometimes in games you have this kind of like attractive tax or like intimidation tax when you take talents or traits that have this kind of vibe to them, and I wanted to address that from like a game design and also like a social psychology perspective. And so I wrote the gambits of Beauty and Beast are not mutually exclusive by design. An individual can be both alluring and intimidating, and far be it from us to say who can or cannot be either or neither amongst the vast attitudes of the galactic frontier. Because what is beautiful and what is intimidating vary from culture to culture, and would vary massively from like planet to planet or social background to social background or whatever have you.
Yeah.
And so it goes on to say, similarly, the storyteller may choose to nullify or alter the effects of these traits if a character moves between star systems or planetary cultures wherein their appearance is no longer remarkable due to cultural or aesthetic shifts. A scarred, grizzled bouncer from a Hab planet may not be considered an intimidating beast on a mining colony full of tough, hard-bitten people, for example, but they might gain the upper hand in conversations thanks to a camaraderie between the world-weary. So I didn't want to put in talents to say, oh, you're intimidating because you're hideous, and that's going to be the case everywhere you go, because someone who is scary on a Hab planet city is just going to look like, they might look like everyone on a mining colony who's got scars and, burns and such. And someone who is beautiful on one planet might be seen as like looking unhealthy or, really out of place somewhere else. And so I left those two fluid so that they could be changed on the fly. For my character, I'm going with beauty. You are attractive by any measure. So I'm going to say he is sort of a very like Hollywood heartthrob kind of very traditionally handsome. But, even though I'm taking that, my GM might turn around and say, like, this isn't going to cut it on a really corporate planet where everyone's paid for plastic surgery and procedures to look like this. You're not going to stand out as something exotic or desirable on a planet where everyone, or like a space station full of rich people where everyone looks this good. And also, on in a working, like in a laboring environment, people might see my character as sheltered, or they might see them as like a little bit too clean and a bit too pretty, and I don't get the upper hand. I end up rolling against the odds because people are like, well, you don't look like you're from around these parts. You don't look like look at your hands. They don't look like they've seen a day of hard labor in their life. And so people don't trust me. So I'm going to go with beauty. And I just wanted to cover that little sidebar from a game design perspective, because I think sometimes people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to take this perk that says I'm really good looking, and I'm really good looking everywhere, and people are going to find me attractive. Yeah. And that has a whole slew of issues with it, from a storytelling and GMing side of it. But from a game design perspective, I'm like, that is just not going to be the case. You're not going to be considered attractive everywhere you go. That's not life. And it's a little bit like, it's fun when the charm or the pretty privilege that you may have had your entire life, you go somewhere and it just stops working, and the GM can just be like, not here. No, they don't think that you're good looking here. This beard that you have was maybe shared by a terrible dictator on this planet, and you're really not the vibe here.
Yeah. I do like, though, that you have the description in here that like you might not be intimidating on a mining colony, but you might have an upper hand in conversations thanks to
everything's got a plus, everything's got a minus. It's
right.
It's
so
not
like,
black and white.
Maybe it didn't work in the way you thought it would.
What's a boon somewhere might be what is a boon somewhere might be a negative elsewhere, and what's a negative somewhere might be a boon somewhere else. things come and go, and I don't like it when games have perks that feel redundant because of where they're being applied. And I've always put things in, in Sins, the crunchy game that I mentioned earlier. It was one of the things is you can start, one of the perks is you start with assets, but if anything ever happens to them, then you should work with the GM and work out a recompense so that talent isn't then wasted by the narrative. You get something else, or you can swap it for something else, because everyone's there to have a good time, and nobody wants to feel like that one choice that they got to make right at the start is made redundant a couple sessions in by something that may not have been in their control. And so I didn't want to say, oh yeah, if you take Beast and you're intimidating everywhere, and no one's ever gonna like you or want to talk to you because you might just go somewhere where you are the norm. You are totally just part of the furniture. You fit right in.
Yeah.
So after that little tangent there, have you two had a chance to look over the gambits and have an idea for what you'll take for your characters?
I do. I like the gambler. You're a master of misdirection. Lies come as easily as breathing. When you use exertion to reroll a die while gambling or bluffing, you may reroll up to 2 dice per heart spent instead of 1.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. And I dug a little bit more into my story. It's all in the details is what I chose. You notice all manner of things others might not. You roll with the upper hand on observation checks.
Very nice.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I know we're going through the character creation process as it comes and what seems to come naturally. Just for those listening, exertion is a way that you can exchange health or heart for success in roles, and observation checks are this game's version of perception checks in a sense, but they aren't operated in the way of, I enter a room and I immediately want to make an observation check to make sure there's no traps here. It's more of a when and not a should I always be doing this kind of thing. So it's when something is unusual and the GM calls for it, for something that isn't trivial to notice. So
it's that definition of don't have people roll if the answer is you find nothing.
And we have put a note in on the section later that appears in the book under observation checks that says passing a self-induced check that you call for may not uncover anything worth describing, which the storyteller should explain. Making an observation check isn't just checking if they notice something, but if the character considers it noteworthy. The character might spot a gun in a civilian's coat, only for that to be a common occurrence on that planet. Or they might unwittingly spoil a heist by calling on the false chips. So if you want to keep calling these observation checks and calling things out as unusual, in a way that in a dungeon crawling game that might protect you, in this you might be, drawing attention to yourself as, a liability. Oh, that person over there's got a gun. Yeah, keep your voice down. Everyone around here carries a gun. Forget about it, Or frankly can
complicate things if you're thinking something is suspicious and it's not. It's that's a red herring. Now you've gone on a wild goose chase about a thing that had nothing to do with what you were doing.
Yeah.
Which also would be a fun story exploration too. That guy's a gun. He must be suspicious, but actually
I know.
Actually, no. I am an undercover cop that has been assigned to you as security because we believe that you're wanted. Now, if you could please stop talking to me and just play it cool, we're going to get you through here, okay?
Yeah, just pretend you don't know me.
So we have our characters. We have the actor. We have the twist. And what was Kit's moniker?
The Lonely Heart.
Oh, yes, The Lonely Heart. And we have Troubles and Gambits that have helped us reflect this. And we could, that is how easy character creation in Orbital Blues is. We could stop there. We know that we have 10, 9, and 8 health, respectively. And we could outfit our characters' descriptions and weapons from here by choice. But we do have a couple of other little things that we can roll on. So for an example, we have a Mementos table. So that is on page 24. And mementos are small trinkets, artifacts, or keepsakes that reflect a character's life prior to the start of play. They can be used simply as narrative prompts for a character's backstory or as critical plot devices in the uncertain future of the Frontier Galaxy. Players may roll on or pick from the following tables of mementos or make up their own. So this is like a little trinket or a keepsake that adds a bit more character to your character.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'm going to roll and see what happens. There's 18, so we'll roll a 20. If we get a 19 or 20, we'll just re-roll it.
There you go.
2. What is M? Is that
2 million credit chip for a defunct casino? That's very fitting for your character.
Oh,
it is. Yeah.
A fortune that you can never claim.
That's amazing.
Was it ever real?
Yeah.
We'll never know.
Exactly.
Lonely Heart?
I rolled a former crew patch.
Oh, okay. So you had so that implies you had a crew prior to this one and you keep something from it.
Yeah.
Very nice. So that's something that could emerge in play. That could explain why your character prefers to hang back. Maybe something happened to that crew. Maybe something, you were betrayed perhaps, or you no longer roll with them for a reason. I'm going to roll, and I have many dice on my desk. I got...
Bummed I didn't get antique sneakers, though.
I got an 18, so I got postcard from a garden world. So I have a postcard from a very, very nice place. I am going to say it's from my mother, and it's a very damning, pithy letter telling me to give up on my dreams, and I keep it to keep me going. That's how I'm gonna spin that one. So amazing. This does bring us to a quite naturally on this page, brings us to something that comes up in games quite a lot: inventory. And with Orbital Blues, we didn't want to do encumbrance. It's not very cool. We mentioned earlier about how space games are often very crunchy. How much can I carry? How much can my ship carry? How many inventory slots does my ship have? How many units is this oil barrel that we're carting around as cargo? And, there's like, you can have a cargo bay in your ship, but it's a narrative thing, and it holds as much as it needs to hold. As for your character, how much can they hold? Because, that gets into the whole like computer RPG thing of like, I have a rocket launcher and I have a sword and I have several keys and key cards and outfits in my inventory.
2 hands.
And I have 2 hands, and I'm going to switch between these really quickly. And why does anyone let me into anywhere? Yeah. Given that I am carrying like a small flatbed truck's worth of equipment on my back. And so inventory.
This is just my pocket, Nuke.
Yeah. Inventory. Yes. During play, a character can generally carry an item in each hand, 2 items in a coat, bandolier, or bag, and 2 items hung on a belt or tucked into a waistband. Characters are also assumed to have ample pocket space for any number of smaller items, such as credits, chips, or smokes. Large and bulky items may take up the space of 2 items. And that's it. That's all we wrote.
That's how you know it's the future. There's big pockets.
There is big pockets for everyone. And it is just plain and simple. You have 2 hands, 2 pockets, and a belt. And so it keeps things nice and straightforward of, yeah, I'm going to have to like carry my big rifle on a strap over my shoulder. I've got a gun in my waistband, and I'm carrying a suitcase that's got the plot MacGuffin in it. There you go. You know what that character is carrying. They're probably not hiding anything significant on their person. Right now, though, amongst us, we only have our mementos, which are, what we've all got fits in our pockets. If we keep it in our pockets, maybe we keep it on our ship. We don't know. And so we have our characters, we have our Troubles and Gambits, and we have our mementos. Now, with in the same section as mementos, we have equipment, which is obviously your weapons. Now, I don't think any of us particularly like combat characters, but we're interstellar outlaws, and we don't know the nature of the work that we do. I mean, we could be big in our fraud era, like we mentioned earlier, because we have the Twist here, who's good at lying. We have the Lonely Heart here, who it's all in the details, and we have someone who is conventionally attractive. We have like all of the like components there for some really good scams and schemes and frauds. We have a bait. Yes. We have an operator. We have a technician. We've got everything there, but things might get dicey, and people might get mad at the kind of schemes and gigs that we're running. So we can roll for weapons, or we can choose a weapon. Characters start play with one melee weapon or one ranged weapon. And what follows on these pages is two very simple lists of starter ranged weapons and starter melee weapons. And weapons in Orbital Blues have little tags after them that tell you what they do and give you an idea of the kind of like damage range that they inflict, or the kind of effects that they have on NPCs should you use them on them. And also some social things as well. So for example, a shotgun has the tag of intimidating. If you're carrying that, people are going to know you're carrying that, and they're going to treat you accordingly. Meanwhile, a switchblade has the tag of concealable. It does what it says on the tin. It's concealable. And so, again, playing back into this story game element of what you take with you is going to change the way people perceive you. So for myself, I'm going to take a switchblade, and I'm going to say it's probably one of those switchblades that's also a hair comb. And I'm going to take that. Yeah. What about you two?
Nice.
As much as I love rolling on tables, I want to take a trank pistol.
Cool.
Nice. And I did roll on the table.
Oh, okay.
And I chose to roll on the melee table.
Nice.
And I rolled a boot knife.
Okay.
A boot knife.
Improvised
concealable, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So just for those who may be listening at home, these are D12 tables that you can roll on or pick from, because the way combat works in Orbital Blues is very narrative. I know that on this podcast, you guys focus on character creation. There are rules and mechanics in Orbital Blues to level the playing field between people who use melee and people who use guns. So it keeps it narrative, and you don't end up with an Indiana Jones moment where you just get shot for pulling out a knife. There's a little sidebar called Knives to a Cinematic Gunfight that helps level the playing field. And we always want our characters to feel cool, and we always want them to feel useful. And so we don't want anyone's choices or random rolls at the start to make them feel redundant or useless in combat. And so what everyone has taken there is, I can tell you now, it's all very balanced, and we'll do all right if push comes to shove in a scrap, because the way combat works is it's dialed towards the players, but it's still dangerous to do. And so now we've got our core stats, we've got our troubles and our gambits, we've got some equipment, i.e. our weapons, and that pretty much covers it for a character. Now, there is one final little thing, a little flourish on the end. Orbital Blues is a game very inspired by music, and it's written with the presumption that you will be using music in your game. And that brings us to your soundtrack. Players should think of a suitable song, theme, or piece of music to serve as their character's leitmotif. This isn't a necessity, but it can be useful for troubles brewing, or for a swan song, or simply when your character is pulling off something suitably cool. Now, this is a very on-the-spot kind of question, but are there any kind of songs or pieces of music that you think would serve as a good theme for your character?
Gosh.
Yeah, no, I don't think I can think of anything else.
On the spot. It's
I don't
one
really
of the
think about it,
more
but I do like
flavorful elements, and it plays into the game's mechanics with a mechanic that I didn't write many of the mechanics for Orbital Blues. That, like, the mechanical praise that this game gets is very much Zach's medals to collect. But we do have a mechanic in there called Swan Song, which is if your character is going to go out, then mechanically you get to play your song, and all of your rolls generally are going to succeed. Nobody can kill you for that time. You can go out with a bang, but at the end of it, you definitely die or otherwise become unplayable. If you reach the end of the road, trouble's too great to manage, your debt's too heavy, your race has been run, you may take your swan song. A swan song is a voluntary process. You go out in one final blaze of glory, complete with the soundtrack of your choice. You can declare your swan song at the start of a scene, provided you believe this is a fitting narrative end for your character, or that your death will drive the narrative forward for the rest of the crew. A swan song lasts for the duration of the scene or combat and has the following effects. You make all rolls with the upper hand. No attack or action you make may be reduced to being against the odds. All attacks you make are deadly. You can make diving saves even if you have already acted this round. You take no damage. You sustain a mortal wound in the scene, and you die at the end of the scene. So it's a very impactful way to go out that brings music into the mechanical focus of Orbital Blues as a little homage to all of the albums, musicians, and tracks that helped inspire the writing of this game. Because what would Cowboy Bebop be without its jazz, or what would Guardians of the Galaxy be without its mixtapes? Orbital Blues, what would it be without your character's soundtrack? So whilst we don't have soundtracks here in this instance, do I have a song for my character? That is a good question. I will think on that whilst we think about our cruise ship. So the cruise ship is like
You certainly don't have to have an answer today. Sometimes when I feel the vibes, I like to make playlists for our different series.
Yes.
So if you do think of something, let me know.
Several Spotify playlists, which I made. Zach made one, and I think Josh has one kicking around somewhere. I was going to pull that up and have a look, see if there was anything on there. And then that way people would be able to easily find it and have a frame of reference. But there is a fourth character here, and that is our ship. And we have made our characters, and we are done with that process. There is more that we could add. You know, we could tell each other how our characters look, or we could explore this relationship between the twist and the lonely heart some more. We could spend all night and several hours on it before we start play. That's what a session 0's for. But there's a fourth character here amongst our trio, and that is the cruise ship. And we're going to roll for the cruise ship together.
Yes. I love making rolls on random tables.
Yeah. A second home for your found family
29.
of spacefarers. Hold on. A second home for your found family of spacefarers. A cruise ship is a cornerstone in many space westerns. Given the average crew will spend a great deal of time traveling aboard or relying on their ship's facilities, ships should be characterful establishments filled with soul and character. As a final act of cooperative setup before play, players generate their ship's aspects together, unless the storyteller has a particular pre-generated vessel in mind. By default, a cruise ship at the start of the game is medium in size. It should have +1 in one stat, +1 in another, and +0 in the final stat. Now, you may be thinking, but a ship, how does a ship have muscle? Is it some weird biomechanical ship? Well, in this instance, no, but that would be pretty rad. And if you do that in your game of Orbital Blues, be sure to let me know. But ships have different stats on page 82. And it's not really something that we'll get bogged down in right now, because this ship is an idea more than it is a mechanical reality. But ships have 3 stats, which are very similar to muscle, grit, and savvy. And they are body, mobility, and systems. Body is probably the only one there that needs any explanation. It is the strength of a vehicle's build. It encompasses how well made a vehicle is, how well it has aged, how much it can carry, and how well it copes with the pressures of travel, combat, and accidents. It is used when a vehicle takes damage or when 2 vehicles collide or ram one another. Mobility is what you think it is. And systems is, it's the vehicle systems. A domiciliary car is probably limited to your radio, your indicators, etc. If it's really fancy, it might have one of those little cameras that pops up when you go in to do your parking. Systems comes into play more for your ship. So we have those 3 stats for our cruise ship. Now, random tables. That's what we're really here for. So a cruise ship, D6, and shall we take it in turns with this one? As we're all rolling together. Who wants to go
just
first?
Shout that. I can.
D6.
All right.
Go for it.
Is that former purpose?
That is the ship's former purpose. What was it before it was our ship?
Unknown. Records wiped.
Mysterious.
Oh.
Good start.
The Carfax port was not available.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the ship's former purpose
That's
was
amazing.
redacted. Right. Kit, would you like to roll for the D6 ship origins?
Yeah. What do we get? 4. Restored from a graveyard, but how well?
Ooh, interesting. That is a good relationship between those two. So we restored it from a ship graveyard, but its records had been wiped for whatever purpose they had been before. I'm going to roll a D6 for the ship's chassis. A real tongue twister there. And I got 6. Large, lumbering, and obtuse. A real heavyweight.
I love that.
Interesting.
Yeah, really shaping up here. So now we have D6 for the ship's weapon.
Write it all down. What did you
Okay,
get
it's your
for
turn to roll.
yours? Yeah. Okay. Here we go. I got a 4, so that is going to be multi-cannon, military heavy.
So it definitely had some kind of military purpose here, because some of the roles you could get on the ship weapon are as simple as a mining laser or a salvage claw. So this mysterious vessel that we've got here probably had some kind of nefarious purpose in the past. Large, lumbering, and obtuse, a real heavyweight, and we found it in a ship graveyard. So we could be looking at like a potential ex-military vehicle here or something, but that's really at the GM's discretion with what they want to do with the result of these roles. So, Ryan, you've got the last roll to make, which is D6 for additional features. And this may give us some other clue to what it may have been.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I rolled a 5. Holodeck, often faulty.
Oh, brilliant. I mean, entire seasons of Star Trek have lived and died by holodeck episodes. So we could really, this whole campaign, whoever our GM is, we just may never have to leave the ship. We could just have holodeck shenanigans all the time. GM's not prepared anything, bottle episode. Stick them in the holodeck. It's gone wrong.
I like to think that your character loves to practice acting in there, though.
Yeah, definitely.
We recorded
And
and
all
it's
of the
really
simulations are a better actor than him. The
Yeah.
holodeck. The holodeck might be faulty because I've attacked it out of frustration for being a better actor than I am. Now, who would like to name the ship?
Oh, no.
Can I do it?
It's a D100, or you can just name
Roll
it.
it up.
But let's go with the random tables.
I roll whenever possible. All right. 36. Albatross.
Nice.
Oh,
nice.
that is a good name.
Named after the Fleetwood Mac song. That is, or the bird. That is a good name for a big ship. That is good. And so in doing that, we have our little crew and we have our little ties to one another. I realize you two have way more going on together than I do. Although, who's my agent again? Is it the?
Oh, probably me.
Yeah, definitely. So you're my agent, and you're a former lover of my agent, and we found ourselves aboard the Albatross, a large and lumbering vessel of mysterious origin that one of us, or perhaps all of us, pulled from a ship graveyard. And in these roles that we've done together, we've made the Albatross a character. We know that it has a faulty holodeck, and it also has a was it a multi-cannon we ended up with for the D6 ship weapon? Yeah. So and that's a military grade weapon. So is this some kind of like big military vessel that had a holodeck on it for a training facility, perhaps? Is this, some kind of weird space laser quest that people would go to? Was this recreational? Was it military? We're not sure, but this is our home. And this is just as much of a character as any one of us is. And so we've got 3 stats to assign it. Ryan, it's your turn to assign something. So what are you going to put this ship's +2 in? Are you going to give it to its body, its mobility, or its systems?
It feels like systems might work well for this ship.
Okay.
Like if it's got a holodeck, it's probably got some
faulty, though.
Decent systems.
It is faulty though, so it doesn't have to go in its systems. Could be systems true. +0. This holodeck is really, really screwed.
Yeah. It's also a large lumbering ship. So.
That is true. Yeah, maybe body would be the best for it. An
absolute unit of a vessel.
Because if it's large and lumbering and obtuse, real heavyweight, probably body makes the most sense at that. But especially if it was military.
Can really past. Take the hits.
Also, what an absurd group of people to have a ship like this.
Yeah.
A liar, an actor, and a socially awkward techie. And we're like, what if we had a military grade with multi-cannons?
Maybe it's a prop.
Well, what if my character is the one that came across it?
Oh, yeah, that's good. That's how we ended up with such a strange vessel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, mobility and systems.
Yeah, your pick. So ship stats come into play in ship combat, obviously, but also they can come into play, say, for example, if your ship was to land on a planet that was racked by sandstorms, you would test against the ship's body or perhaps its mobility to see how it fares against those kind of environmental hazards. So as the pilot comes into land, they might be like, the GM might say, could you roll me the ship's body against these sandstorms? The pilot might say, we go on sandstorm planets quite often and we've installed some shields to defend against this exact thing. Okay, well, actually roll me the ship's systems to see how well they do. Okay, we roll, we pass, and we manage to, the ship lands and it's safe. And we get out and we go about our bounty hunting business or whatever it is we're doing on this desert planet. we head back to the ship. The GM might say, whilst you're away, I rolled on the ship's systems and it failed. And the engines are just full of sand. And you guys are going to have to wait for the sandstorm to pass. And you are like, you're twiddling your thumbs on a planet where you may have just made a massive scene in the nearby town, or you've got some time to kill. You're going to have to spend some time with each other, and you might be each other's least favorite people or most favorite people, depending, whilst the sandstorm passes. And just by giving this ship stats that it can pass or fail on, as like a character would, it gives the storyteller more to play with and more ways that the characters can engage with it. Like, you know, Kit here could spend some time working on the Albatross's thrusters, and that's something that they could do as a crew project, which is a mechanic that we have for mechanics. See what I did there? Where they can they can spend arcs. They can spend arcs doing, like, working on stuff. And going back to my whole why can't I be a blacksmith in D&D thing, putting that in there. And the mobility of the ship might improve thanks to Kit spending some time working on improving that. And so the ship can get better with the players. We have ship gambits or ship blues? Check out Afterburn for more on ship systems.
So when is that coming out?
So I don't know when this will air. But
it will air like throughout August.
Okay.
Like over the course of the whole month of August.
By the time you are listening to this, it is probably being printed. In that case.
Okay. Cool.
At the time of recording,
then
from
we
the
can
last
plug
I
it in
heard, August, it is probably in the process of being printed, and we might have posted pictures of proofs online.
Cool.
Unsure.
We can make note.
Stay tuned.
For other stats, did we decide our mobility and systems?
Oh, sorry. We had a 1 and a 0 to play with for mobility and systems. Would you like to assign those?
Yeah. Okay, so my thing is, like, if it says that it's large, lumbering, and obtuse, I feel like our mobility probably isn't great.
Let's call that I'll say that. I'll take the 0 then and put that in mobility, which leaves the +1 for systems. And that's why, our holodeck is good. We have a holodeck.
It's not too bad.
But
so that's the thing, is like there's a lot of potential and the infrastructure is there for cool systems.
Yeah.
Yep.
We do still need to make them work. Like, we have enough outlets for everything. We just need to find what plugs in where.
Yeah. And, we might end up in bottle episode after bottle episode on the holodeck where we think we're pulling a really elaborate scheme on somebody who boarded our ship. You've told them a really good lie. I've really sold them down the river acting like I'm also a mark. And Kit's there sort of overseeing all of this, making sure that this person can't leave until we've got their credits. And then it turns out it's the holodeck playing tricks on us, and that person was never real. And, that's content right there that involves all 4 of these characters, us 3 plus this ship. And, I'm not saying that the holodeck is the only way for a ship to have any character, because when it comes to like ship systems, option number 2 on additional features.
One of the things we could have.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, is the AI, right?
Yeah, so a roll of 2 on that AI, D6 says onboard AI, callous, if not resourceful. Number 4 is android crew bound to the ship. Number 1 is a functional med bay, but poorly stocked. So already that's an impetus to go out and try and get our med bay stocked.
Yeah.
Other roles that we could have had, say, in the former purpose, we could have had number 3 would have been a gambler's barge. Do we still have casino tables on our ship? Do we still have slot machines installed, or did someone rip them out? D6 for ship origins could have been bought at auction a bargain or a huge regret? Do we want to sell our cruise ship? It could have been number 2, claimed by force, hard won. Is someone looking to get our ship back? Is our ship a wanted quantity by someone else in the galaxy? Or, for example, D6, ship chassis, number 1, enviably ornate, turns heads in dock. Is someone going to try and steal our ship whenever we go somewhere that's a little bit dicey and a little bit like high in crime? Or, for example, number 4.
We can't go anywhere sneakily with a ship like that.
No, I mean, we can't go anywhere sneakily with a ship like this anyway. Large, lumbering, and obtuse. But number 2,
okay, fair enough.
pitifully patched up, falling apart. Are we going to have to, is session 1 going to be get the engines running so we can get off this planet? And the cruise ship is more
I feel
than
like you
just
could play a whole game
within your ship.
I feel like you could play a whole game without ever getting off your ship. Yeah.
Yes, you should. And really, this was all a big front to me making DS9 the RPG. Yeah, you absolutely can do that. And if you do that, tell me all about it. Much like the biomechanical ship I mentioned earlier. That is by design. It's meant so that your ship is more than just something that gets you from A to B, because it might be something that, due to the narrative or the GM's desires, they might want you to spend a whole session on that ship. Every good sci-fi media has like an episode or a scene or something where like they're stuck on the ship. And by having that, we're taking this all the way back to the origins of like Star Trek not having the budget to shoot in different locations. But sometimes as a storyteller, you don't have time to plan. Sorry, guys, this is a ball episode. And you don't always need a holodeck for a ball episode. It could be that the ship is broken. It could be that you're out of fuel in the worst possible place. It could be that you've got pirates attached to your hull because they want to come aboard and they want to take your ship because it looks nicer than theirs. It's so that the characters have this additional resource in their ship that gets them from A to B, but the storyteller also has this additional resource that they can call upon. That's like, it's not a GM PC, but it is. It's a character that they can say, sorry guys, the ship is just not working today, and you're going to have to figure out why. Or the ship has gone above and beyond for your crew today, and it's really got you through a tight spot. But, parts are falling off it now, or something's gone wrong. You're going to need to get this sorted out. It's going to need fuel, and you don't have money for that fuel. So now you need a job. And that, again, takes us back to this thing of impetus of play, like the credits and debt system that I mentioned, like right at the start of this. Your ship is a good way for a GM to siphon off your credit. This faulty holodeck. What level of holodeck are we playing with here? Is it something that can affect us physically? If I get shot in the holodeck, does a real bullet fly out of a wall and hit me for
only one way to find
purposes? Am I going to need to go see a doctor after I read my lines wrong in my soap opera that I'm simulating on the holodeck, and I've ended up getting shot? I've annoyed one of the characters in this fake scenario. Have they hurt me physically? Or, is this ship going to run out of fuel because it's too heavy for its own engines? We're going to need a job. We're going to need to go scam somebody. We're going to need to go do some fraud. We're going to need to do a heist maybe to simply like get this from A to B. The cruise ship is a system that
I love a good fraud.
The cruise ship is like a good system that we're like really proud of, and everyone always has fun with it. Because at the end of the day, like you've just all made your characters, which we did very like quickly and easily. It was like a blink and you'll miss it kind of thing. But we did that. We now have Raze and Charlie and Kit, the actor, the twist, the lonely heart, which if you've been listening, like you've got a clear idea of who those people are, what they do, what their relations are with one another on the crew. And you've got an idea for the kind of hijinks that they'll find themselves in, with one of them as a sort of like someone who had a crew previously and is now seem to be sheltering themselves, perhaps, based on those experiences, an actor who's never going to make it, and then someone who just cannot stop lying. We're going to get ourselves into all kinds of scrapes and troubles and adventures, and that is Orbital Blues. I am... Did I take a trouble? I took a trouble. I live in my mother's shadow, and the twist cannot stop lying, and Kit is just torn up over Charlie. Are they going to end up? Is it a will they, won't they kind of situation, or is that ship firmly sailed? Am I ever going to make it? Is the twist ever going to tell the truth? This is your Orbital Blues. These are the kinds of adventures and shenanigans that your characters will get up to simply by being made. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm an elf wizard. What does this elf wizard do? Elf wizard things. I don't know. We've made our characters, and in making those characters,
with a sword.
We've made our potential adventures already before the GM has even thought of one for us, or picked one up for us to play, or written one for us. We've already got things that we'll be getting on with it on the side. And this goes back to what I said earlier about like when a character's not on screen, they don't stop existing. You've got an idea of what like Kit would be doing on the ship when they're not on screen. You've got an idea of what like the twist might be getting up to whilst the actor has gone to yet another casting call and been told no. And you've got an idea of what the conversation's going to be like when all three of them go back to the Albatross and talk about what their downtime was spent doing. And when these three come together, you've got an idea of how they'll play off one another. And so in making the character creation in Orbital Blues like that evocative and just that right level of mechanical depth to narrative prompts, you've got a really nice like recipe for character interaction and shared narrative, which, you know, is what character creation is all about. And that's my like go through.
Absolutely.
I know I've mentioned we've mentioned mechanics in the character creation process that some people may be listening to and going, but what was exertion? Or, what is like, you know, ship combat like? Pick up Orbital Blues. This is my plug section. This is my plug segue. Orbital Blues is available from Solid Publishing and a bunch of other stockists. And Orbital Blues Afterburn, by the time you listen to this, is probably in print and on its way to you if you backed it on the Kickstarter. If you didn't, I believe you late pledges are still open. Don't quote me on that. That is Orbital Blues. Thank you, you two, for listening to me read from my own book in a very self-serving way, but I hope that it helped the listeners get an idea of how to generate an Orbital Blues character. And I got into the rhythm of that. I was like talking to you guys that I only started talking to a couple of hours ago, the same way that I speak to lifelong friends at my table, and talk you through the same process that I would, just as fluidly and easily with the Orbital Blues core book. Everything that I read out was from the core book. Every table that we rolled on is in the core book. You could, you at home listening with the right rolls, very slim chances, but it could happen, could roll this trio. But, you know, you probably won't. But even if you had, you could have spun them much more differently. Than what we did. Like the twist or the Lonely Heart could have been different. The actor could have been different. You know, the names that we rolled could have been different and may have like led us down more different inspirational paths. The mementos that we rolled could have all meant something different to everyone. Like, for example, if I got the 2 million credit chip for a defunct casino, I don't know if I've got the savvy to know that it's defunct, and I might think I've got a fortune waiting to be collected in my pocket, and I might always be living in that hope. Like, it doesn't matter if acting doesn't work out. I got 2 million credits in pocket.
Oh yeah.
Or, you know, the postcard from a garden world could have been.
I'll pay you back later as soon as I have a chance to go.
Yeah. It could have been from, like, the person who broke Kit's heart.
Anybody.
Yeah. So yeah. That is Orbital Blues character creation. It's really simple, it's really easy, but you end up with really cool, memorable characters that right from session 0 and into session 1, you're going to be like playing off of each other. And I went into this playing as the person who wasn't sure who they want to be, and now I really want to play Ray's, the failed actor, fail son of someone famous who is muscular and conventionally attractive, but probably not particularly smart, and has a complex that they're always living in someone's shadow. And my agent is always lying. So are they lying to me? Do I even know that they're lying to me? Do I even have a job? Is my next job real, or is it just another part?
I'm certainly lying to the casting directors
in the twists next scam.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, so good.
Thank you so much for joining us for our character creation. You're right. Like, I love what we ended up with here. This is amazing. Do you want to remind people? I know we've talked about it several times about what's coming up and everything, but if you want to put a quick plug in the end here for your stuff.
Orbital Blues, I've already done the plug, but Orbital Blues Afterburn is probably being printed at the time that you are listening to this and on its way to you. Orbital Blues, the core book, is available from Soul Muppet Publishing. It's available from Exalted Funeral, I think, in the US. If not, Soul Muppet does have US shipping, and you can probably find somewhere that will stock it near you. It's gone far and wide, and at the time of recording, we have just translated it into Italian as well. Then there are probably other languages on the way. Orbital Blues has a plethora of adventures and settings and scenarios written by a wide variety of writers from all over the world that cater to different GMing styles and scenarios. You can find all of those through Soul Muppet, and some of them through places that also stock Orbital Blues, because they have physicals as well. Or you can get it online on DriveThruRPG or other places that you would find your role-playing games. I am Sam Sleney of Sleney, Clark and Cox, the Orbital Blues writers, creators, artists formerly known as, etc. And you can find me online as at Sam Sleney, SLENEY. I'm not very online, but if you follow me and I have something else coming out or some thoughts on something, probably nonsense, I will tweet about them or take pictures or whatever have you, or you can at me with questions about Orbital Blues, or join the Soul Muppet Discord and go into the Orbital Blues section, and myself, Zach, Josh, or one of the other many people who've worked on Orbital Blues adventures, mechanics, etc. We'll get back to you if you have questions. Don't ask them on /RPG Reddit that I mentioned earlier. I never post on there. I will not answer it there.
Don't go there.
But I will
see
it.
A weird place.
And your question will not be the one that makes me break my streak of never posting on Reddit, but simply browsing it for answers. So ask it in the Discord. That's where you can find me. That's what we've got out there. What do we have coming out? Soul Muppet Publishing has just sent out the physicals for Inevitable, a game about playing as cowboys, not ones in space, but they're also sad, I think, because the world is ending. Their world. They're not in space, just to clarify. That is not Orbital Blues, just a lot of cowboy-heavy games from Soul Muppet.
Yeah.
That has just come out, and in September, Zach is doing Paint the Town Red. I think it's in September or October, I'm not sure. But that is vampires. That is Soul Muppet. Zach taking a crack at vampires, and they're party animals, and they have their own slew of issues related to being vampires and living with immortality and all of the foibles and issues that come with that. Check that out. That pretty much covers it. I don't have anything coming out myself. I am kind of burnt out after Orbital Blues, but when I've got something, I'll let you know about it.
Excellent.
Thank you for having me. It has been lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you to everybody for listening. Please join us on the next episodes for our discussion block. Call to action.
Yeah, like that.
I loved making the ship in this, having everybody contribute kind of details to it and rolling on the random tables and figuring out like how big the ship is, where it came from, like its origin story, so to speak. It gave us a lot of like really interesting like backstory in very few tables. I thought it was really cool. I love what we came up with. I love the Albatross. And gosh, I would love to play this series of sci-fi Western shenanigans, telenovela in there as well. I don't know. There's a lot going on, but I love it. And the discussion that's coming up in the next couple of episodes is absolutely stellar as well, pun intended. So you'll want to check those out. But before we let you go for the day, we do have a lot of calls to action. So sit tight. They are plentiful, but wonderful at the same time. First up, if you haven't had a chance to check out the new shows on the network, now is a great time to get started since they are technically in their infancy. The Ultimate RPG Podcast by James D'Amato released their second episode already, this time building a setting with Rowan Zayuli, who is one of the journalists for Rascal News. Coming up next week, the second episode, technically third, I guess, since the first episode was in two parts, of Starwhal will be releasing as well, where the tenants of the apartment complex turned spaceship get whisked away to gamer space. It is a wildly good time, and I hope you are able to check it out. In addition to the new podcasts joining the network, there is also a Kickstarter that is going on right now for the first one-shot network RPG anthology. Over the last year, Tracy Barnett has been working with many talented game designers to bring new RPGs to the one-shot Patreon book club. And now this is your chance to get these exclusive games for yourself. They just hit 69% funded over the weekend. Nice. And if things keep on pace, should fund sometime this week. But they will need your help to do so. In addition to this, James created a game about sneaking human remains into Disney, and he is giving it away for free in celebration of the Kickstarter. You'll want to check that out too. For all these things going on with the network, we will have links in the show notes. The last bit of special news for those on the network, Tracy Barnett also just released a brand new game that we had discussed previously, hinted at, if you will, on our You Are the Dungeon episodes with them. This new game is called You Are the Tavern, and it is a solo or group game where you tell the story of a tavern and its surrounding history, and you get to create a really interesting artifact and map out of it at the end. So it looks really cool. Absolutely check that out. We'll have a link as well in our show notes. If you like what we are doing here and want to support the show, the absolute best way is to head on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/charactercreationcast and sign up for any of our tiers. Honestly, even the free tier is going to be getting a little bit of an upgrade. We're going to be doing some newsletter stuff on there, along with some other stuff on the free tier. Bonus outtakes are all going to the free tier as well. But if you want to up your pledge at all, the Sticker of the Month Club is one of my favorites at the $10 level, where you get new stickers every month. We have a couple in the backlog that we need to catch up on. Life has been lifing hard, but we are keeping track of everybody, we promise, and they will be out hopefully within the month. So keep an eye out for those that are at that level. And these stickers are usually in theme of the series that we covered that month. You can also get custom C3 dice and a personalized thank you card handcrafted by Amelia for $5 and up, as well as chit chats every week that we're able to do them for $1 and up. So now is a absolute wonderful time to sign up and help us out. We absolutely could use the help. We are just under our operating budget for the year, and every little bit really does help us out. We also like to thank all of our patrons personally every single episode. You all mean the world to us. So we'll go ahead and get this started with DJG, aka Tigranosaurus, Eric Bonds, and Daryl Holiday II. You all rock. Thank you. Shadim Kabal, the Shyest Barbarian, and Benjamin Sweeney. Thank you all so much. We're glad to have you here, Lorcan McGinnis, Rob Fletcher, and Kevin Brown. Thanks for supporting. Tentacle Duck, John Adamus, and A3 Sketchpad. Thanks for helping us make this show. Cole McCallum, Carlos Salazar, and Eric S. Thanks for supporting our dreams. Ian Potmeyer, Sorigoth, Liam G. Thank you so much for your support. Brian Colm, Garden GM, and Tanglefoot. You shouldn't have, but we are so glad you did. Thank you. Thanks to Blue Kryptonite, Danny, and Nicole Trainer. So glad to have you all backing us. Liam Murray, Kenning, and Brian Kurtz. Thank you so very much. Mark E. Fair and Drew Owen. You're the best. Thank you. And thank you to all of our future patrons. Your support means so much to us. Every bit of support here helps tremendously, and we are incredibly grateful to all of you. If you are already supporting the Patreon or can't afford to do so right now and still want to show your support for the show, absolutely leave a review. Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Podcast Addict, even Facebook, Spotify review ratings. There's not too many places that you can leave reviews and ratings, but every single one will help us out. And if we get a review, we'll read it right here and thank you personally. That's all we have for today's episode. Stay tuned next week when we dive into some really great conversation with Sam to learn a bit more about him as well as more about this game. But until then, take care, everyone. Stay safe, drink some water, and keep making those amazing people. We'll see you next time. Character Creation Cast is a production of the One Shot Podcast Network and can be found online at www.charactercreationcast.com. Head to the website to get more information on our hosts, this show, and even our press kit. Character Creation Cast can also be found on Twitter and Blue Sky at CreationCast, or on our Discord server at discord.charactercreationcast.com. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Bolter, and I can be found on Twitter and Blue Sky at Lord Neptune or online at lordneptune.com. Our other host, Amelia Antrim, can be found on Twitter and Blue Sky at Ginger Reckoning. Music for this episode is used with a Creative Commons license or with permission from the podcast they originated from. Further information can be found within the show notes. Our main theme music is Hero Remix by Steve Combs and is used with a Creative Commons license. This podcast is owned by us under Creative Commons. This episode was edited by Ryan Bolter. Further information for the game systems used and today's guests can also be found in the show notes. If you'd like to support our show, find us on Patreon. Get access to bonus episodes, exclusive merch, and much more at patreon.com/charactercreationcast. Thanks for joining us. And remember, We find that the best part of any role-playing game is character creation. So go out there and create some amazing people. We'll see you next time.